It is the world's 10th largest economy and the world's second largest country by land size, yet only has a population of around 37.5 million people. To many, it's known as one of the most welcoming and friendly countries in the world. But for Canada, several issues are starting to come to light. On an economic and political front, tensions are mounting between Canada and its southern neighbor, with the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or the USMCA, barely 2 months in. And already the U.S. has slapped a 10% trade tariff on Canadian aluminum imports.
As part of this commitment, earlier today I signed a proclamation that defends American industry by reimposing aluminum tariffs on Canada. Canada was taking advantage of us, as usual. And I signed it, and it imposes, because the aluminum business was being decimated by Canada. Very unfair.
Now, this comes after the horrific situation in the U.S. following the murder of George Floyd. I'm sure you've heard about that. With police brutality, institutionalism, racism, and clear division in the U.S., leaving the Canadian Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, speechless.
We all watch in horror and consternation what's going on in the United States.
Hello, bonjour, and welcome to Economic Divide with me, Kavita Hui. This week, we not only look at the ongoing trade dispute between Canada and the U.S., but we also reveal an Economic Divide exclusive as we hear from the victims of a joint Air Canada and trade union harassment and bullying scandal that Canada clearly appears to want to keep quiet. Now, don't forget, this is your show, and in the same way we found out about the Air Canada scandal from a viewer reaching out to us, we want you to do the same. Are you the victim of unfair treatment by a large company? Have you been bullied at work? Or has your union let you down? Get in touch by sending us your story on our Twitter page, @ED_program. Now, when it comes to trade, Canada and the U.S. are naturally going to be huge trading partners, simply due to market access that they both enjoy. In fact, some 75% of all Canadian exports land in the U.S., with some $338 billion worth of goods being sent from Canada to the U.S. In fact, the money generated from sales to the U.S. make up 75% of the entire export tally of Canada. The other 25% of Canadian exports make up countries elsewhere around the globe, with the UK seeing some $12.6 billion per year of imported Canadian goods, and China seeing $21.3 billion in trade. It hence is no wonder that the Canadians are keen on maintaining ties with the U.S. in spite of facing debatable decision by Donald Trump. Well, with such a huge landmass in Canada, Canada is, well, blessed with a host of natural resources, with an estimated cost figure of around $33.2 trillion worth. It is home to the world's third largest confirmed petroleum reserves, as well as vast deposits of minerals and, of course, timber. It's no wonder, then, that Canada recently displaced Russia as the 10th largest global economy.
It didn't take long after the signing of the USMCA, which replaced NAFTA, before a potential trade war erupted between the US and Canada, with the catalyst for the conflict being sparked by Trump's 10% tariff on Canadian aluminium.
It's been a long time. Everybody said this was a deal that could not be done. Too complicated, too big, couldn't be done, we got it done. And today we're finally ending the NAFTA nightmare and signing into law the brand new US-Mexico-Canada agreement. Very special. Very, very special.
Trump, with his usual vague and unverified excuses, blamed the imposing of sanctions on national security, two words that Trump appears to be wearing out very thin lately as he justifies all his recent actions in this typical manner. Canada duly returned the favour a day later in order to balance the sheets, but one must legitimately raise the question as to why the US would do such a thing so soon after passing a trade deal with Canada, in particular a trade deal that Trump had tweaked to suit him better following the NAFTA that Trump said was not fair to America.
The final tariffs that we impose will be, as I said, perfectly reciprocal, dollar for dollar. and the total amount will be $3.6 billion.
Equally concerning for Canada, and I therefore should say all other nations hoping to trade with the US should take note of, is that Trump appears to have placed caveats into all of his so-called fair deals, including snapbacks. So even when a deal is signed, the US can move the goalposts at any time they wish. But when it comes to interstate trade between Canada and the US, it seems that Canada are duly bound to accept almost any conditions imposed on them by the US, simply because some 80% of Canadian exports end up in America, and hence when a neighbour pays so much to buy your produce, it can be very hard to let go of such a readily available source of income.
Joining me in the studio today for this exclusive episode of Economic Divide is Susan Sproul. Now, Susan contacted us here at Economic Divide to share her story, following a scandal that appears to have rocked Air Canada and its workers' union, Unifor. With nearly 700 victims being treated unfairly by the company, it appears that no Canadian media outlets wanted to cover the story. But here at Economic Divide, we do. Susan, many thanks for joining us at Economic Divide.
Thank you very much for having me. There's a lot of victims that are suffering because our union, Unifor, that has a big media control in Canada, over all medias, Canadian medias, is helping our Liberal government, and they're hiding this story, unfortunately, for many years now.
Well, Susan, I know that this story has brought you a lot of pain and grief after 30 years of loyal service to Air Canada. Tell us a little bit about your history of service to the company to give the viewers an idea of your career.
I started in 1985 in the airline industry through college and university, and after I graduated, I decided to change. It was my passion and my love my entire life. The first 25 years were amazing, and in the year that I started getting harassed by the company in 2011, we had evacuation problems in our call center, and I was also the health and safety union rep for 22 years for the company. I had never had any issues. And after those 3 bad evacuations between 2011 and 2012, that's when everything went really bad, and the harassment went up. I got sick. The bullies got rewarded, were put into retirement, and all the victims are terminated administratively without cause, with nothing. And because I refused to sign the non-disclosure agreement, I was terminated. And they're retaining my pension now, and I must wait, like every other victim, between 10 and 20 years to make it to the Human Rights Tribunal. And because all the union has the control over the Canadian media, nobody wants to cover the story.
So what happened? Why did Air Canada dismiss you? And how did the company and the workers' union, Unifor, handle the situation?
I don't understand really why of everything that happened. I was always an appreciated employee. I was awarded excellence, act of bravery for the same events that I got harassed for. I went to directors, I went to past bosses that I trusted and had amazing relationships with. Nobody wanted to get involved. I figured out many years after and suffering that any employee that makes a complaint, puts in a formal complaint, is tagged for dismissal, unfortunately. Why? We don't know. Why the union doesn't protect us? We don't know. But it's an out-large policy for all unions in Air Canada, it seems like.
Okay, a report in the Huffington Post shows nearly 700 people to have made complaints against Air Canada, with some of them being spat at, victimized, bullied, and even assaulted. Was this a personal problem that Air Canada had with their employees, Susan?
Yes, it was. I was the one that was spit on. There was an article in the Huffington Post in June 2018 by journalist Emily Clavel, but it was after that it was shut down and it never went national, like nothing. I was spit on, I was pushed, I was verbally assaulted, and I had vandalism and on my car, keyed all around my car, plus also I had 3 flat tires in 1 year, and I've been driving since I'm 16 years old and I've never had a flat tire.
So has Air Canada or Unifor done anything since to try and at least resolve this culture? And why, in the meantime, has the Canadian press avoided this important issue that is obviously very important?
I don't know the why, like I said before. However, it seems that it's a standard practice because every single victim I spoke to, every single sick employee I spoke to who reached out to me, It's the same. It doesn't matter who you are, what you've done at the company, how many years you've been there. It will be the same result in the end. If you've been tagged for whatever reason to be dismissed, you are. And the unions actually make the journey to justice even worse, because you have to, in Canada, to be able to defend yourself, you have to, if you're unionized, you must go through your union. That is their principal responsibility, is to defend their members. However, we have a union that works hand in hand with the company and makes deals with them. I was dealing directly with the wife of the president of Unifor, Leslie Diaz, and I spoke to Mr. Jerry Diaz in December 2018, asking him why, as a union rep that served the union for 22 years, were they doing this? And they told me they had no legal obligation to defend victims at the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal. I should have signed the non-disclosure and taken the deal they were offering me, and I would have had my pension right now. That's what the answer is, and they hung up the line. I don't have an explanation.
Well, Susan, many thanks for taking the time and having the courage to actually come forward and talk to us here at Economic Divide. We really appreciate just how difficult this must have been for you.
Thank you very much. It's a toxic work environment we have, and it's not getting better. All employees are working in fear. They won't speak up because they know if what's happened to many of us will happen to them. So they remain silent.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, if you want to find out more about Susan, check out her Twitter page on your screens as it appears right now. And don't forget, if you want to share your story or want to add to this one, make sure to contact us via Twitter using the marker @ED_program. We're here to share your stories. Now, we're about to take a quick break here on Economic Divide, but don't go anywhere as we have plenty more coming up right after the show. We're going to be joined by another victim of the Air Canada scandal as we take a deeper look at the culture within the organization and ask the question as to why large corporations are getting away with treating their most valuable assets, namely their staff, in such terrible ways. Also going to take a look at Canada's unique migration culture and ascertain how the Canadian economy is reliant on migrants. We're also going to be joined by Mahan Abedin, one of our regular commentators here on Economic Divide. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this short message. Time to bring in Mahan Abedin, our regular current affairs and impact analyst. Mahan, it's good to see you again. I know we haven't seen you in a little bit of time here. Yeah. Tell us what you have for us for your first post.
Well, this is all about the brewing trade war between the US and Canada. So here you have social media user commenting on how Trump has started a trade war with Canada. And of course, the background to this, of course, is the aluminium thing, which is really, really interesting. So we'll go into it more as some of the other tweets come up.
Sure. Let's go on to the next tweet, see what you have for us.
So, enemy of the world, trade war now upsets Canada. Well, this trade war essentially revolves around aluminium. And the deepest story is the US-Mexico-Canada agreement, which was only inked about 5 weeks ago. It's very fresh. And the US is already violating it because apparently in that there was a clause in there, a so-called snapback clause, which allowed the US to, put on tariffs if it feels aluminium imports are at an historic high. But there's also another reason why the Canadians are very vexed about this. So it could potentially go beyond trade.
Okay, and your last post here, let's take a look at that.
So, 10% tariff slapped on Canadian aluminium. Of course, there's a cost for American manufacturers. This is all true. And a trade war begins, which is the last thing anybody wants. That's all true, but really, what's at the heart of this is the U.S. essentially invoking national security. It's never done that in its relations with Canada on any issue.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We appreciate it. Mahan Abedin, it's good to see you after a little bit of time here. Yeah. Mahan Abedin, our current affairs and impact analyst. So we're going to take a deeper look now at the Air Canada scandal, including Unifor, and find out whether the poor treatment of employees is a common thing in large corporations. Do stay with us.
One of the most iconic brands in air travel is Air Canada. With its distinctive maple leaf logo and sky blue aircraft, the company is a well-established and omnipresent airliner around the world and appears to be a well-respected commercial ambassador for Canada. However, there's a very dark side to Air Canada. In this Economic Divide exclusive, our special guest Susan Sproul got in touch with us and revealed a story of harassment, discrimination and victimisation that Air Canada and its union, Unifor, appeared to want to keep quiet, going as far as blocking the story being shared in Canada. However, here on Economic Divide, we wanted to expose the truth.
I experienced and witnessed both severe verbal and physical harassment in my workplace at Air Canada.
The shocking fact of the matter is that the incidents being reported here today on Economic Divide are not isolated, with the number of victims of the bullying seen by Air Canada in the hundreds of people.
I did have access to information from the Canadian Human Rights Commission, which is our human rights body here in Canada, and it came back with many cases. Some of those cases could be multiple cases. I think I gave the information to Sue, and I think there's over 300 or more cases.
In times of heightened awareness against discrimination, some of the victimisation seen in Air Canada is truly alarming, in particular for a supposedly diverse and welcoming country like Canada.
I witnessed a guy, this was in a case of racism, where a co-worker was picked up and shoved into a window, which was supposed to be unbreakable because it was in our lunchroom, and he got pushed through the window. I've often seen a lot of physical violence between co-workers for no reason.
So what kind of working atmosphere did this create? As mentioned by our guests, the toxic work environment appeared to be a widespread issue for the employees.
I felt very frightened in my work situation and fearful of going to work because you never knew what to expect in your work day. And a sense of powerlessness, because I also witnessed many of my coworkers who did speak up terminated for their efforts.
So what did the union and justice system do to help and support those in this position? As we heard from Susan Sproul earlier, investigations and processes appear to be leaving staff in limbo for over 10 years before a conclusion is reached, effectively ruining the career, lives and mental well-being of all involved.
Unions should not be dealing with human rights cases. It should go directly to a human rights tribunal. Because a lot of times, union is built up of co-workers. So if co-workers are doing this, then you're just having people with the same mindset who are abusing their co-workers working for the union. So it's kind of a useless situation. The justice system, it takes a minimum of 10 years to reach some sort of agreement, and in the meantime, an employee could lose everything, including their job and any personal assets they might have.
We contacted both Air Canada and Uniform here on Economic Divide. However, neither of them replied, suggesting that they either just didn't care or they had too much to hide.
Our focus for the in-depth section is on what's called the SNC-Lavalin affair. This was a political scandal which involved attempted political interference with the justice system by the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and the Prime Minister's office. This is how Canadian media covered the story. First, what you need to know about the SNC-Lavalin affair. Aside from stating how the engineering giant's legal troubles spread to Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, one key question was asked. Did the Prime Minister try to pressure Attorney General to step in and resolve the corruption and fraud case against SNC-Lavalin Group Incorporated in an effort to spare the Montreal-based engineering giant from criminal prosecution? What was the SNC's role in this scandal is the next question. Well, SNC-Lavalin faced charges of fraud and corruption in connection with nearly $48 million in payments made to the Libyan government officials between the years 2001 and 2011. This is what the Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau had to say in his own defense.
In regards to standing up for jobs and defending the integrity of our rule of law, I continue to say that there was no inappropriate pressure. I'm obviously reflecting on lessons learned through this, and I think Canadians expect that of us, that any time we go through periods of internal disagreement and indeed challenges to internal trust as we have, there are things that we have to reflect on and understand and do better next time. SNC Lavalin is a company that employs 9,000 Canadians across this country. They create many thousand spin-off jobs in peripheral industries. They directly or indirectly put food on the table for countless families as one of Canada's major employers. But they are also a company facing serious criminal charges. The context is a tough one, with potential job losses in the thousands. These are the types of situations that make governing a challenge.
Canada's no doubt a nation that's embraced and grown on the notion of migration. It has one of the world's most complete and stringent immigration systems based on the much coveted points-based system, and sees a wide range of races, religions and nationalities making up its population. As things stand, the population of Canada is around 37 million people, with 1/5 of these people residing in Canada having been born abroad, equating to some 7.5 million people. Those considered Indigenous or having roots prior to Europeans arriving in Canada amount to just 1.67 million people. Yet when one looks at the areas from around the world, the majority of people arriving in Canada are from Asia, with India and China being one of the main blocks of people coming from this region. Africans are next, with around 13.4% of Canadian migrants from the continent, followed by Europe on 11.6%. Interestingly, in 1971, Europeans made up for around 65% of migrants to Canada. With so many migrants seeking to obtain the much sought-after Canadian Permanent Residency Card, how important then are migrants to the Canadian economy? The movement of people to Canada begins with students, with the country seeing some 642,000 foreign students currently reading at university level, making it the world's third largest destination for foreign students. With an average yearly fee of around $29,700, the income is soon apparent. But migrants also make up a huge workforce in Canada, with many of them holding highly skilled jobs as determined by the immigration process, from doctors to lawyers and engineers to bankers. Canada, it seems, has a highly integrated and efficient workforce. However, much like the issues faced at Air Canada, it seems that a toxic culture exists across a whole range of careers across the country, and unlike the US and the racial tensions seen there, Canada appears to be either dealing with the issue better or simply just hiding it from view.
Hidden behind the friendly facade is a country that clearly has two sides to its economic presence. On the one hand, Canada is blessed with huge reserves of natural resources, as well as having an immigration system that is the envy of most developed countries. On the other hand, there exists a deep and hidden subculture of discrimination, victimization, and bullying within one of Canada's most well-known brands, raising the question as to why so little attention is given to the story in Canada itself. The future economic outlook for Canada appears to be bright, as the slow but steady realization of the impact of the coronavirus begins to set in and trade begins to pick up again. However, even that appears to have some hurdles for Canada in their trade relations with the U.S. As you've seen today, we're here to share your stories, so don't be shy. Get in touch with us via Twitter using the @ED_program. Let us know what inequalities and injustices you have faced. We will make sure your voice gets heard. Don't forget, you can watch this show again simply by logging on to our website and clicking on shows where you will find Economic Divide. Feel free to share the links of our stories that matter to you, and make sure to leave us a comment. We would love to hear your feedback. That's about all the time we have for this episode. I've been Kavit Ahlai, and on behalf of myself and the whole team here on Economic Divide, thanks for watching. We'll see you again next time.